The last step here is configuring. So if you go to the AudioShare menu again and you select Configure, this is where you can configure multiple AudioShare devices at the same time. In order to do so, the AudioShare programmer needs to discover which devices are in your system. And so if it has not been done before, it will bring up the system scan dialog. There's two ways to scan the system. You can do it in an automatic method where the AudioShare programmer will go out there and try to discover all the devices automatically. The next method is to do a manual, and this is if you already know what your device's addresses are, you can just manually enter them in there with a comma separation. So for example, if I had an AudioShare device at address 11 and 13 and 32 and 45, I could enter them in as I've done here with a comma separating them, and then it will only search for those devices at those addresses. However, it's probably easier just to do the automatic method, in which case the programmer will go out and scan the system. Now, as it's scanning, it will tell you how many devices it has found up to that point and continue to increment devices found. Now, the types of devices that it will find are AudioShare 101 and 201 wall stations. It will also find a door station, and it will also find control relay modules, or CRMs. Moving ahead, when the scan is complete, it will tell you how many devices it has found. In this case, it has found 13 AudioShare devices, and we can just close those dialogues. And the very first configuration tab, it will allow you to set the system clock. Now when you push that button, it will just send the time on your computer out to the to every single AudioShare device and set the clock automatically. That way you don't have to go to the wall stations and set them that way. The other, but keep in mind that all of the settings that you're going to see on this tab relate to system-wide settings. So obviously a clock is a system-wide setting. The other settings are hands-free mode, if you want hands-free mode to be on or off, what the system passcode on that system would be, as well as what the default music address is for the system. So you can set those all at a system-wide level using this tab. You can configure each of the devices independently by clicking on the Devices tab, and this will list all the devices and their addresses and what their current names are. Now this is automatically filtered using the device type radio buttons on the bottom right hand corner, where we have wall stations, door stations, and control relay modules. And depending on which mode which device we are showing, that will reflect in the device list on the left. So I don't have any control relay modules on this system, so it's not showing any. But for door stations and for wall stations, you can see how those device lists change depending on what mode or what device type I'm looking at. Note that both the 101 and 201 will show up together in wall stations themselves. Now I can configure a specific wall station. Let's say I go to the game room. I can select it independently, or I can select multiple devices and configure them all at the same time by clicking the Change Settings buttons. And what this will do is it'll show me for the different settings in those wall stations, for intercom, music, as well as any of the user interface settings. It'll show me what the current settings are there, and I can change those settings, and it will reflect for each of the devices I have selected here. Now, if it's I guess a good example to show here is, let's say I have a 101 and 201 at the same time. This game room wall station happens to be a 101, and this server room wall station happens to be a 201. So I will select both of those simultaneously and push the change settings. And you'll notice, especially if I go to music, that there's two types of music input settings that are possible, because the 101 only has one digital and one analog input, whereas the 201 has two digital in and three digital or three analog inputs. So obviously these types of settings aren't really compatible with each other, so in that case it will gray them out. And anytime you see anything grayed out is because that particular device doesn't support that in a mass setting. However, if I do select just a 201, or if I select devices that are all common to each other, so they're all 201s or they're all 101s, then those settings will show up and you can change them. So for example, on the 201, if I then say change settings and then select the music tab, you'll see that now they're not grayed out, and I can set those. Now it's important to note right now that this version of the AudioShare firmware for both the 201 and 101 do not support music input names yet. The AudioShare Programmer does and is ready to handle those, but the wall stations do not. So even though you make changes to these music input names, they will not show up on the wall stations yet. That's coming with a future release for both the 101 and 201. But anyway, the settings here can all be changed. Just informationally, the last tab will show you what the hardware and serial numbers are of that specific device and what the software version is that it's running. So anyway, this is a quick way to be able to look up kind of what the information is about those devices. Anyway, once you've made the settings that you want, you can push the save button, and that will save those settings to those devices that you have selected in that list. Anyway, the last tab is the address book tab. This is where you can set room names to the actual addresses. So you can simply just double click on a room. Let's say I go to the exercise room. I can double click on that and I can change its room to whatever I want to call it, and I can push the save button, and that will save the address book, the changes you've made. So everything here should be pretty straightforward on how they operate. So anyway, that's a quick overview of the AudioShare Programmer. Hopefully this video has been able to at least get you started on how to use it. If you have additional questions, look for additional videos that we may post, or feel free to call AudioShare support, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day.